Welcome back to Ranklyx. Today, we aren't just talking about rule breakers. We are looking at the top 5 humans who are fundamentally too dangerous for mixed martial arts. We are going to analyze their elite fighting skills and break down the exact, terrifying moments that force the sport to permanently ban them. Just look at these guys. These are the faces of men you do not want to meet in a dark alley. Let's begin. If you ever find yourself in a dark alley with rousimar palhares, don't worry about your wallet. Worry about your ability to ever walk up a flight of stairs again. Palhares was a walking, breathing human fire hydrant built entirely out of fast-twitch muscle fibers and bad intentions. His fighting style wasn't complex, but it was horrifying. He was an absolute master of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, specifically leg attacks. While most fighters use grappling to positionally dominate you, Palhares used it like a hydraulic car crusher. He would dive for your ankles, wrap his tree trunk arms around your leg, and apply a heel hook. There's the pain to tap out. And that brings us to why he's banned. Palhares didn't just win with submissions. He seemed to treat your severed ligaments like a souvenir he wanted to take home. At UFC 111, Tomasz Druval tapped. The referee jumped on Palhares. Palhares kept cranking. At UFC Fight Night 29, Mike Pierce tapped frantically, and the ref literally tried to tackle Palhares off him. Rousimar just held on for an extra agonizing 2 seconds. He did it again in the World Series of Fighting against Jake Shields, while casually gouging Shields' eyes for good measure. Palhares possessed elite-tier grappling skills, but had the impulse control of a golden retriever in a butcher shop. You can't sanction a man who views the referee's stoppage as merely a polite suggestion. Next up is Paul Semtex Daley. And let's be fair, they didn't call him Semtex because he was known for his explosive intellectual debate skills. The man possessed one of the most lethal, dynamite-laced left hooks in the history of the welterweight division. Daley's style was pure, unadulterated British kickboxing. He wanted to stand in the center of the pocket, bait you into throwing a punch, and then turn your lights out before your knees even hit the canvas. He was a human highlight reel, provided his opponent was dumb enough to stand up and trade with him. Enter Josh Koscheck at UFC 113. Koscheck knew standing with Daley was a one-way ticket to the Shadow Realm, so he did what any smart collegiate wrestler would do. He took Daley down and suffocated his offense for 3 straight rounds. He also spent 15 minutes whispering sweet nothings and trash talk into Daley's ear while pressing his face into the mat. When the final horn sounded, the fight was officially over, but Daley's temper was just getting warmed up. As Koscheck turned his back, Daley casually walked up and threw a massive, illegal left hook right to Koscheck's jaw, instantly turning a sanctioned sporting event into a felony assault. Daley treated the final bell like a snooze button on his violence. UFC President Dana White was so disgusted that he cut Daley before he even left the arena, famously stating that Daley would never fight in the UFC again, even if he became the best in the world. There are fighters who push the rules, and then there is Gilbert Yvel, a man who treated the referee like just another opponent in a very uncool shirt. Yvel was a terrifying heavyweight striker out of the Netherlands. If you analyze his prime, Yvel's fighting style was a masterclass in Dutch Muay Thai. He was incredibly aggressive, throwing devastating knees from the clinch and swinging head kicks with zero regard for human life. He was a pure sprawl and brawl fighter who wanted to keep the fight standing at all costs. The problem was, when things didn't go his way, Yvel's brain seemingly short-circuited into pure street fight mode. Before he ever sniffed a major modern promotion, Yvel built a resume of fouls that reads like a rap sheet. He was disqualified for biting an opponent. He was disqualified for blatantly gouging Don Frye's eyes. But his magnum opus of madness happened in 2004 against Bachman. The referee kept separating the fighters from the clinch, which frustrated Yvel. So, instead of adjusting his game plan, Yvel turned around, dropped the referee with a clean left hook to the jaw, and casually kicked the official while he was out cold on the canvas. Striking a ref is the cardinal sin of combat sports. Yvel's sheer inability to distinguish between the guy he was paid to hit and the guy paid to watch him hit resulted in him being blacklisted from competing in the United States for years. If you took a drunken master, crossed him with a grizzly bear, and completely removed his prefrontal cortex, you would get Vyacheslav Datsik. Known as the Red Tarzan, calling him a mixed martial artist feels like an insult to martial arts. To analyze Datsik's fighting style, you have to throw all conventional logic out the window. He didn't have a style. He had a series of violent spasms. He would do forward somersaults toward his opponents, throw wild looping haymakers from his hips, and attempt headbutts. Yet terrifyingly, he had absolute anvil-heavy hands. In his 1999 debut, he was getting completely dismantled by a young Andrei Arlovsky, a future UFC heavyweight champion. Out of nowhere, Datsik throws a chaotic, uncalculated right hand that flatlines Arlovsky instantly. But his lack of technique was nothing compared to his lack of sanity. Datsik was a walking liability. He would routinely attack referees, intentionally foul opponents by diving out of the ring and completely ignore the bell. But his ban from legitimate MMA didn't just stem from cage antics. It came from his real-world psychosis. Datsik was eventually arrested for armed robbery, placed in a high-security psychiatric ward for schizophrenia, and literally tore a hole in the wire fence with his bare hands to escape into Norway. Promoters didn't just ban him because he was a dirty fighter. They banned him because booking him meant voluntarily inviting a natural disaster into your arena. Finally, we arrive at Jason High. Now, unlike Palhares or Datsik, Jason High wasn't known as a dirty fighter. In fact, for most of his career, he was a highly respected, well-rounded veteran. High's fighting style was built on a gritty Division I collegiate wrestling base. He was a grinder. He loved to close the distance, press you against the fence, drag you to the deep waters of the mat, and win grueling, exhausting decisions. He was technically sound, incredibly tough, and fighting his way up the UFC ladder, but at UFC Fight Night 42, all of that technical prowess was undone by 3 seconds of pure, unfiltered ego. High was fighting Rafael dos Anjos, who caught him and dropped him hard. As dos Anjos swarmed with ground and pound, referee Kevin Mulhall stepped in to save High from further brain damage and waved off the fight. High, still concussed and riding a massive adrenaline spike, popped up furiously. Instead of protesting verbally, he marched directly up to the referee and aggressively shoved him backward with both hands. It was the fastest way to turn a lucrative UFC contract into a piece of abstract art. Dana White fired him on the spot, stating you can never, ever put your hands on an official. High forgot the golden rule of the cage. The guy in the black polo isn't in your weight class, and shoving him is the only knockout blow that permanently takes out your own career. The cage doors finally unlocked, but the legacy of these 5 men serves as a dark reminder of what happens when the violence goes too far. Who do you think is the absolute most dangerous fighter on this list? Drop your thoughts in the comments right now. If you want to see more uncensored martial arts breakdowns like this, leave a like on the video and make sure you subscribe to Ranklyx so you never miss an upload. Until next time, stay safe out there.